So how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
What have you been doing since we last talked?
I know. Here we go. Here we go. I
told you it was controversial.
I mean, go for it. I don't know.
Put it on the list.
I'm Katrin.
I'm Mary.
Welcome to
Since We Last Talked.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my goodness. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Why do I look so pale? Hang on. I'm going to change the color of this light right here.
Oh, there you go. Oh, she's warmed right up.
She has warmed right up.
The first couple episodes, I was like, oh man, I look really pale. So I did like stage makeup tonight. I went back to my theater days and my dance days, and I was like, okay, I need to like actually put on some bronzer to make myself look like a person.
It's just okay. It's because though I'm never like well lit. I'm like in a cave here in my house. So I feel like the way like it's just the contrast between me being in like darkness and you're always like brightly lit. That's
I have a lot of lighting in my office. It's very like
I love it.
Also, I noticed that my bathroom door had been open and Aaron was like, you have to close that door to the bathroom, Mary.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh, you probably have a good point there.
That's so funny.
I closed that. I, kind of got you can still see my dress that I wore at Abby's wedding.
That's fine. I would know.
It hasn't moved.
It kind of looks like curtains there.
Right?
I don't know why you would have curtains there, but it does look like that.
I don't know. It's like, it kind of gives me some like breakup of my negative space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Also, I left you a treat at the beginning of this recording because I've been on for a couple minutes.
Oh, glorious.
I can't wait for you to go back and listen to
it. Should I include it in the episode? That's the question.
It's pretty silly. I mean, it's pretty silly.
Okay. I'll use discretion. We'll see.
I was sitting here and I was like, my eyebrows aren't really, I like darken my eyebrows. It's silly. It's totally appropriate for the airwaves, but I was like, Katrin's going to love this when she
airwaves. Oh my gosh.
Appropriate for the airwaves. What the hell does that mean?
I don't know. I was thinking about some of our episodes to come and I'm like, will YouTube flag this? Maybe.
Right.
We'll see.
Whatever. In 2025, I feel like probably.
Yeah. Whatever. I guess it depends on like what we explicitly say. So we can just get real wild with it.
You know what?
Or maybe
I'm willing to try to get taken down.
Maybe we'll have our Wild and Wanton editions by then.
The night version.
The evening, the after dark.
The Wild and Wanton gets me so much every time.
Oh my gosh.
Because like, I don't know who thought to pair great works of classical literature with so like funny. Nasty porn of today. It was the best.
Oh my God.
To the woman who like loves romanticizing everything, it was like so great.
Oh my gosh.
I really wanted to find Wuthering Heights, but I only ever found Pride and Prejudice.
I bet it exists out there. You'd probably have to order it, but I bet it exists.
I'm going to have to do some looking for it because I could never find it at any Barnes and Noble I went to try and track it down.
Yeah. I was telling some of the ladies in my book club that you had that book.
Yeah.
And they were like, maybe I need to find that. They were like, maybe I will read Jane Austen if it has sex scenes in it.
I know. I mean, it really livened the whole thing up, and you still get the benefit of like the beautiful way that it's written at its original.
Yeah.
Plus, like everybody wins.
Yeah, I can see it.
Everyone wins.
I have to tell you, and I don't know if it are we putting all of this in the episode so far? I don't even know.
I don't know, but I'm ready for it.
So the book that our book club is reading right now is a hockey romance because we want to go to a hockey game after.
Yes.
after we finish it, but it's called Pucking Around. Have you ever read that? It's really popular, apparently. But it
Stop
literally, I'm
it.
listening to the audiobook and it's so funny because it started out and it was like, you're listening to Pucking Around, a Why Choose romance. It's it's one woman and multiple men. Why choose?
What? Why?
Mm-hmm.
What's the reason? Why choose?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I love it.
Oh my gosh.
There's something really exciting about hockey for sure. Like I've gotten
Mm.
into it in the last couple years
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I love it. There's
Mm.
something really primal about watching men just like full on body check each other
Mm.
on skates. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's something really Freudian about the whole thing. It's like
Yeah.
super interesting to me. And I also sometimes like I'll be sitting at home watching a game and like somebody will do something stupid. Like they'll make a stupid fight happen and I'm like, "Stop embarrassing yourself. Like you look so stupid right now."
Yeah.
Like it's too much. It's too
Yeah.
much.
It
So I
seems
talk to them like,
it seems very aggressive. I don't consider myself someone that likes the aggressiveness per se, but I
mm,
feel like certainly
mhm,
that's going to be
mhm.
probably in this book that my book club is reading. I'm sure since
Yeah.
there are like multiple love interests,
Yes.
there's probably going to be some aggression on the ice, if I had to guess.
Oh my God, they're gonna get into it over the
Mm-hmm.
girl. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
love it. The game and the girl. Oh my God.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
How thrilling. That sounds so good. I'm gonna have to read it.
Yeah, looked up, I wanted to see like what people thought these characters looked like or whatever, and so I looked
Yes.
it up and I saw the three men and the woman, but then there was also like her holding a baby in one of the like fan art, and I was like,
Whoa,
is
no,
there like a
no.
baby in
Oh
this?
my God.
Like,
Spoiler
I
alert.
know. So I don't know what I'm in for.
Oh my God,
Like,
maybe she doesn't know who the dad is.
I don't know.
I
It's
love it.
wild.
I'm
If you
already
listen to the
excited.
audiobook, it gets real
Beware.
weird, but
Be warned.
it starts out very aggressively, I must say. Um, but yeah, one of the girls in the book club, actually women, I'm gonna get into that. Not girls, women. One of the women in the book club is further along in the audiobook, and she said like one of the men sounds like a straight up like vampire. He sounds so weird in the audiobook, so I don't know.
I'm sorry. A vampire crossover into the hockey?
I don't think he actually, I think he just sounds like spooky or something. He sounds
That
like
sounds like a
creepy.
dream I had.
I don't know. We'll
Oh
find
my
out because
God,
it's
I'm
it's
obsessed.
it's different narrators for the characters, but
I
anyway.
love it. So, I love listening to audiobooks when I'm
Hmm.
driving.
Hmm.
That's the only time, and podcasts too. I have to admit that the only time I can really get into a podcast is when I'm driving because
Mm.
I know that there's nothing else I need to be doing other than paying attention to the road and listening to something.
Yeah.
When I'm working, when I'm doing other things, it's so hard for me to
Mm.
ever try to focus on it. So I wish I would listen to more audiobooks because I would certainly read more
Yeah. Yeah.
if I did. But I have so many downloaded and like have not even touched them yet. And like
Yeah.
I think I still get charged for like an Audible credit
Oh,
each month. So
yeah.
I've got like all these credits. So I recently bought Mel Robbins' book,
Okay. Yeah.
Let Them,
Hmm.
on audiobook because I also was like, I really think like hearing that in her voice is probably a really
Hmm.
powerful thing. But I was so excited to read her book and then I got it on Audible and like I haven't even thought about it. So I
Yeah.
am such a paper book
Mm.
person, but I mean the audiobooks are great. They're great.
Yeah. I'm a paper book person as well. There's nothing better than going to a bookstore and buying a tangible copy.
Yes.
Um, but I walk a lot in our
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yes.
I love having either a podcast to listen to or an audiobook. If it's an audiobook that I'm really invested in, that's perfect. I also mainly listen to podcasts when I clean because I'm like, okay, I'm going to
Hmm.
listen to like an hour-long podcast and that's how long I'm going to clean. Whatever I get done in that hour, that's like all I'm doing.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, because I kind of have two modes of like, I don't want to clean it all, and that forces me to like actually spend time cleaning.
Yeah.
Or I get into these like really manic episodes of like, I'm gonna scrub my baseboards all throughout the house. Like it gets just a lot. And so
Yep.
then there's kind of like a cutoff of like, okay, no, you did enough. You did enough.
Right.
You can sit
It's
down.
a good way to measure time. Like it's a good way
Yeah.
to make sure that you're not like going overboard, but
Yeah.
also like filling that time if you need to.
Yeah. I
I
wonder if
should
people listen
probably
to
do that.
us when they're cleaning or
We would be
walking.
honored to know if you are listening to this as you're doing another task.
Yeah.
Tell
I
us about
know.
it.
Yeah. Tell us what you're doing right
Are you
now.
driving somewhere fun? Are you going to work? Are you cleaning your baseboards?
Right.
If anyone ever asked me that, the answer would certainly be no. Never. I've never,
No.
I never have.
I did that before I had Alden. I got this like steamer, one of those like steam cleaners, which
Yeah.
I'm not even really sure if it does anything because I also heard that in order for the steam to really make a difference in the germs in your house, it needs to like stay on the surface for a while, like several seconds. And those steamers, you're meant to just kind of like go
Yep.
quickly wipe down the surface. And apparently that's not enough to kill germs. I don't know. But I did do all of the baseboards in our bathroom and in our bedroom, and it was
Mm,
very satisfying, I
I
must
bet it
say.
was.
But again, I
I
don't know if
love
it
that.
did anything other than just like get like dust and dog fur off the.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a lot. I'll tell you. It goes a long way, especially in a household with a
Mm,
dog.
yes, it does.
It does. What can I
Yeah.
say? What can you say? I mean,
What can you say?
I will say that today was the day. Today is February 8th.
Mm,
Finally took down our holiday decor.
excellent.
I had been thinking about doing it and I was like, I'm too sad.
Yeah.
I shed a tear
Oh.
taking down my angel Minnie Mouse. Aaron, oh my God, Aaron was like, all right, honey, we need to like get this done today. Like, let's get into it. I'm like, oh, you're
Hmm.
right, you're right, you're right. He's been working all day, so he's been like in and out, and he
Yeah.
comes in for about an hour and a half. So we have lunch, and then he immediately goes over to our tree, our holiday tree, and starts taking off the ornaments, picking them off, cherry
Mm-hmm.
picking off my
Mm-hmm.
ornaments. And I was like, oh, I guess we're doing it right now. So we get
Mm-hmm.
into it. We get all that down. We got our garlands down. We get the mantle cleaned off. I get the sideboard all done. And and then he's like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta go to work. And I'm like, okay, so I'm alone now with my feelings. He's like, honey, you'll be fine. And I'm like, I cried taking Minnie Mouse off the mantle.
Oh my gosh. I love that you have a little Christmas Minnie Mouse.
Oh, she's not little. She was once a tree topper. Oh
Oh
my
my
God. She's
goodness.
my, oh my God. I feel like I need to go get her. But
Go get her. Let's see her.
okay, wait just a second.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so excited. Okay, now I hope you're ready for this.
I'm so
Hang on.
ready.
So this mini was purchased probably in the year 1993.
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh. She's
And
vintage.
she's absolutely vintage. And she used to grace the top of our tree
Oh my
when
gosh.
I was a little girl. And I love her
Oh,
so much.
that's so
I've
sweet.
always loved her so much. And so, okay, also, she plugs in,
Uh-huh.
she lights up. Well, she did. And her little hands go in and out,
Oh,
and her wings
they
flap.
do.
Like, are
Her
you
wings.
fucking kidding me? We don't deserve her. So
That is precious.
we did start to smell some heat coming from her last year. So we
Uh-oh.
were like, we're not going to plug her in anymore.
No.
But our tree is too little for her to
Mm.
sit atop. So she just sits on the mantle and we decorate with
Perfect.
some garland. And like, I love her so much. Like, she
Yeah.
just brings me back
Oh.
to my childhood joy. And like, she is like very, very vintage. I don't even know where my mom found her, but that's
Oh.
my Minnie. And I love her.
That's
Thank
precious.
you. She's really, she's our guest on today's podcast.
We can say featuring Angel
Featuring
Minnie
Angel
Mouse.
Minnie Mouse circa 1993.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I love her. I love her so much. So I was putting her into her box and I was like, it's more like a coffin. I was like
Oh
making I was making such a dramatic deal out of everything.
oh my
And sweet
gosh.
Aaron just like he rolls with it.
Yeah.
He thinks I'm funny and thank God because I don't know what else. I don't know what else he would have to do with me if he didn't
Oh
think I
my
was a little funny.
goodness.
So that was our day today, and then we got off into other projects and working on other things, and
Yeah.
we tried to. I mean, we were like, if we have the motivation to do it, we just need to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So big
Yeah.
things happen around here.
Taking down the decor from Christmas.
Christmas is over, says Minnie, but she'll be back. I was like, I'll see you in 8 months, 7 months. I
Yeah,
was like
right. I
counting
know.
down.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, give her like 9 months and she'll be resurrected from her coffin.
Absolutely. The coffin is not permanent. It's just for a little while. It's just for a little while.
Oh
But
my
it was
gosh.
an emotional day.
Mm, I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
We took down our Christmas decor a few weeks ago, but it's all still sitting in our hallway because we have yet to put it up in the attic.
Oh, yeah. It's not put
So,
away. It's all sitting
no.
out in the living
Yeah.
clearly.
We took it down and we were like, well, like I kind of like need to be there to spot Mike as he goes up and down the little rickety
Mm-hmm.
attic staircase. So,
Mm-hmm.
like ladder thing we have. So I'm like, I know I could put the baby like in the crib or something. He'll probably have a meltdown, but he's just gonna have to chill
Right. He's just going
when
to
we
have to
put that
cry it
up.
out. Yeah.
But we just have yet to do that. So it's all
Hey,
still sitting out there.
you know what? We're not on anybody else's timeline.
No. But it does give me a certain level of anxiety. Like, I am not a super tidy person,
Mm,
but when I'm walking around the same clutter every day, it starts to kind of like wear on me a little
yeah.
bit. I think I ebb and flow between really liking a minimalist space because it just is like it's like a cool washcloth to my head. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like when you walk into a room and it just is like sparse in a way. But then at the same time, I find myself when I'm decorating, I'm more of a maximalist and
Yep.
I like to see all my things and I like little
Same.
trinkets and I like
Same.
little vintagey things.
Hmm.
Um, Makes it very hard to like keep surfaces clean and and to give my
Yes.
brain that peace when I walk into a room because there's little stuff everywhere.
I'm the
So,
same exact way. Like I would love to be able to attain a minimalist environment, but it's not in my personality. Like I
no.
want to see everything I own at the
Mm-hmm.
same time in the same room. Like I want books to line these walls. Like I
Yeah.
want to live in a Disney cartoon library. Like that's where
Yeah.
I want to live.
Honestly, I want a library so badly,
I
which is
know.
like when that whole like Marie Kondo spark joy thing was
Mm-hmm.
happening,
Mm-hmm.
that was the one thing that I was like, I can't get behind this because she said to
No.
pick like 5 to 10 books total, and that's all you own. And I was like, mm-mm, girl, that is not for me. Again, I like to go into a bookstore. I like to own the physical
Yep.
copies. I also buy a lot of like really pretty used books, like older
Yes.
copies of
Yes.
things
Mm-hmm.
in like their original binding. Oh, it's so beautiful.
It is.
So much prettier than what like a Barnes and Noble produces. But
Absolutely.
But yeah, I can't get on board with the like culling your books down to like five.
No, 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 no. That's not for me. I like to keep every single book I've ever read in the hopes and
Yeah.
collect books I have not read,
Mm.
knowing that someday it's going to look gorgeous in my library.
Yeah.
And all
Yeah.
of the books and all of their different colors, like I still love the color coordination
Hmm.
of a a bookshelf. Um, but I love that so much.
How do you find books though when they're color coordinated? Because like if it's not organized
Oh,
by like
I had a
author or
very good point. My system was that if the book was read and I knew that it was going to, like, I wasn't going to reach for it anytime soon, it was
mm,
part of the collection.
I see.
I have a different stack and setup for to
Yeah.
be read. Like my TBR
Yeah.
is like in a different place. So once they're read, they go into there. But then I think like I see it so much that I also
Mm,
know like, oh, the pinks, oh, the blues,
sure.
oh, the greens. Like I know kind of where they go, but yeah, no, it's kind of hard because it when you're just doing it to be like look a certain way, you're not
Hmm.
focused on like the topic or the content or the
Right.
author or how people would normally and logically arrange their books.
We at one point came across in one of the like restore stores,
Mm-hmm.
we
Yeah.
came across a set of bookcases that was from a library and they still had the like labels for the genres on them, or they were from like a bookstore or something.
Oh,
And Mike and I really debated about getting them. There was like three bookcases and we could have fit them in our hallway, but we were like, I don't know. We just were kind of on
you
the
were going
fence.
back and forth.
I regret that so much. I think about those bookcases all
Oh,
the time because I'm like, how cool would it have been to have essentially like if we had like screwed them into the wall and
yeah.
had them almost as built-ins and to have them down our hallway and like already categorized. And it's like, oh yeah, here's our fantasy section. Here's our, I don't know, like
I love
sci-fi section.
that.
I know.
We could
But
do a whole episode just on things that we regret not buying because I have a full catalog in my
oh my
brain of things
goodness.
I wish I would have bought. And
Yeah.
one of them might have been a dog today.
Oh, what?
I
You were
know.
looking at a dog?
We were looking at the Humane Society
Yeah.
and they had this gorgeous litter of
Mm,
something. I mean, it looked like maybe like I don't know what. I don't know, but there were these beautiful little mutts, just
yeah.
gorgeous and like really stunning. And we found one that we like love. We were like, oh my God, his face. He's so cute.
Yeah.
His name was Kodiak. I know this is probably gonna like trigger
Cute.
Aaron when he listens to it.
Oh.
But but we like we have not planned on getting another dog. Like
Mm,
we are deeply happy with our two dogs right now. But he always kind of looks around and he passes the Humane Society every single day, like multiple times a day.
yeah.
So he saw that they posted on their stories this litter, and Kodiak had like several brothers and sisters. So
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at some of them, and by the time Aaron called the Humane Society to inquire he was
Oh.
adopted, which
Oh.
also like makes you so happy because
Yeah.
I was
There's
like,
so many
he went
people
to,
watching and yeah,
and
and
they
interested.
said, like, we asked about the brother too, and she was like, it's really busy in here today. Like, come right now if you can. And we were like, we love that it's so busy. Like, that's amazing. That's the
Yeah,
best you can hope for on a
truly.
Saturday. Like, knowing that your Humane Society is like bustling with people. So we don't have a new dog.
Mm.
But I was like, oh God, if we get a new dog, I'm gonna have to tell Catherine I can't record today. And then it's gonna cause a whole mess. And so
My
I was like,
gosh.
okay, that's just like one. I was like, I can't take time off work right now because it's very busy. And
Uh-huh,
I need to
uh-huh.
be able to be home on paternity leave and like fully with my dog all week.
Oh my gosh.
So, but I'll always
Hilarious.
remember him. He was really gorgeous. I'll send you a
Yeah.
picture of him later.
Yeah,
He
please
was
do. You
really,
know I love
really
seeing little sweet
stunning.
little rescue pups.
I know.
Speaking of paternity leave, though, this is just something from the news. Did you
Yes.
see that Germany is giving paid maternity leave when a woman miscarries.
Wow.
Yeah, they just
That's
passed that.
amazing.
I know.
Oh my God. It makes way too much sense.
Right? Right? When I saw that headline, I was like, yeah, why is that not a thing?
Come on.
Why do people not get paid leave when they miscarry? That's traumatic.
Because I'm sure that, some people would take sick leave. Some people don't have sick leave. Some
I
people don't
know.
have paid sick leave. Like,
I know.
oh my God, it sends me into a tailspin. But
I
like,
know.
that's incredible.
Yeah. I'm glad to see it like at least being a conversation
Yeah,
being had. I mean, and
absolutely.
in other countries being implemented. So
Yeah,
pretty neat.
that's pretty awesome. And like, again, just makes way too much sense
I know.
to
I
ever
know.
be a topic of conversation here.
I know.
It's like I see these other countries doing things. I see other places in the world making these amazing decisions um for their people, and I'm like, oh man, that's awesome, good for them. Like, I don't have any faith that it will come. I was like, oh, I'm so happy for you guys, like that's so great. And I'm like,
I
oh,
know.
I can't, I will never get my hopes up about anything that would actually make a positive difference right now.
At this rate, we're really just hanging on for dear life.
Oh yeah, it's just survival right now.
We are on the back of the roller coaster being whipped around and barely hanging on by the skin of our teeth.
Oh yeah.
And we're praying for an end in sight.
I mean, like,
When is the roller coaster gonna
I
end?
don't know. I want to get off. I want to get off of it, for God's sake. I have been motion sick for so long right now. Like, I'm done with this. But yeah, I think it, plays into this whole conversation of like almost being envious of people,
Mm,
in other countries and in other places in the world where they have,
yeah,
healthcare.
I know. Well, like it's no secret to you, but to our listeners, people may not know this, that Mike and I have like really and truly considered multiple times through the years
Yep.
leaving the US.
Yes.
And honestly, we could probably do an episode on that because
Absolutely.
I know we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
I was actually just having a conversation in my DMs earlier this week
Yeah.
about like someone else saying they were worried for their kid and like wishing that they could move.
Yeah.
And there are people that do it. It's scary, but it
Yeah.
is doable.
Yeah.
But then I always, again, this could be like its own episode if people are even interested in that. But I feel like there is kind of a sense of like, but what if the grass isn't as green? Maybe we just think it's better because it's
Sure.
something different and maybe it's not. And like,
Right.
I'm sure there's going to be pros and cons with moving anywhere.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. I have thought about it quite in depth.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of thought about it as well, like just kind of more than daydreaming of like, where would we
hmm
go? Like, what would we do? What would we, you know, what would it take to finally
Right.
say, like, what is our breaking point? What is at what
hmm
time are we unable to, continue living here? So
hmm
we've definitely thought about it too, especially in the last couple of years. I think,
Yeah.
since we've kind of reverted and regressed quite a bit. And yeah, we've definitely had conversations about it.
hmm
And it's a thing. I mean, it absolutely is. And I'm
Yeah.
just scared all the time.
Maybe I'll just add that to our list
I was about to put it
of
on right
topics.
now.
Yeah. Let me just
I
add
think
it to
that's
our list of
great.
topics because I obviously could have a lot to say about that. I think you could as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people our age have thought about it.
Yeah. I think so.
Or even just at the bare minimum when you've traveled somewhere else and you're like, can we live here? Like I
Right.
kind of like here. Like even if it's just for fun, I feel like
Yeah.
people contemplate that all the time.
Absolutely.
Um,
I don't know if there's anywhere that I've traveled abroad that I would be.
hmm.
Ah, maybe. I mean, I would go lovingly back to jolly old England. Like, I
Yeah.
would love it. Take me back.
I I would move to England or Scotland in a heartbeat.
That's the only place I think I'd go right at this moment, right now. That's where I would head.
But like they're also having political issues as
Yeah.
well. I mean, I feel like every place is at the moment. So
Yeah. Earth is
I don't
kind of a
know.
scary place to be right now.
It is.
To all of our alien listeners out there, we are really happy for you and so excited that you guys are living your best lives out there or
Oh my
around here.
gosh.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
God.
They could be among us.
I mean, I hope they are.
Oh my
I would be
gosh.
honored to know one.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Mary saying out of pocket things once again on the podcast.
I love it. Oh
Oh
my
God.
gosh. Well, I kind of like briefly touched on a little bit of like what our topic is going to be today.
Yes.
Um, and that was a good example of things that I've started to notice in my life that are inherently misogynistic,
Mm,
that I feel like we still ignore as a society, or at least I very much ignored
yeah.
for a long time until recently.
Yep.
Um, and I have been doing kind of like a look back at my life
Mm,
of some of the things that I now see as very much internalized misogyny. That again,
hmm.
I didn't have that perspective
Yep.
at the time. I didn't have that wording to be like, "Oh, that's what this is."
Yeah.
But now that I do, now that I know that that is a thing, I can see areas in my life where I'm like, I was falling victim to internalized misogyny
Hmm.
in that moment or in that belief.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk about that today, just
Mm,
along with all the like DEI stuff
yeah.
happening in our country at the moment,
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
lot of talk about whether or not women or people of color, different races and religions, whether or not they are qualified for the positions that they get. So,
Mm. Sing it, sister.
so
Yeah.
I'll just jump right in.
Get into it. I'm like, I cannot wait to hear these examples because I bet they they go for both of us.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sure we've had the same thought
yeah.
at certain points looking back.
Well, the first thing, it doesn't apply to you just because I know you,
Mm.
but you knew me growing up, and this will also not surprise you that for a long time, I hated the color pink.
Ah, yeah. Mm.
So this first one, like I said, does not apply to Mary, but
But I understand it.
I feel
I
like
have
it
some
was
thoughts on it
only,
too.
I feel like it was only recently that I've like understood my hatred for the color pink, and I don't hate it anymore.
Yep.
I think I just, growing up, I had an older brother, and my parents very much raised us as equals. It was
Mhm.
not like things that were feminine were bad, things that were masculine were good. Absolutely not.
Right.
Like, that was not the dynamic in my household. I was always very empowered to be a strong girl and
Mhm.
feminine as much as I wanted to be.
Yep.
But I think I had this idea of things that were overly girly
Hmm.
were less than
Yes.
somehow. And I don't
Hmm.
even know where that came from. Because again, like I had lots of friends that were girls. My parents certainly did not instill those beliefs in me.
Right.
All I can figure is that was some kind of like society pressure in a way to be
Yeah.
like, oh, you like pink? Ugh, well, you're not cool.
Right.
I don't even know why that was a thing. I only liked pink growing up in my like scene kid days when I would do like neon pink with
I was
black,
gonna say it had to be hot pink and black.
which is so dumb now when I look back on it that that was like the only pink that I was okay with. And now I'm like, if I have an option for something and it comes in like baby pink, I'm like, I want the pink. Because like, why not? Why wouldn't I embrace the femininity of it all? I'm literally
I'm
like,
one
your sweatshirt
color.
is
I'm
pink.
one color right now. Like this is
Love it.
it right
Your
now.
room is pink, your sweatshirt's pink. Your
So
Yeah.
here's what I'll say is that I completely understand and have and saw those things
Mm.
as a child, as an adolescent, as, a young adult, I sometimes felt embarrassed for liking the color pink. I
Mm.
thought I at times felt like shameful for liking pink because I knew how feminine it was.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a very, very similar, my household was very female positive. I mean, we've got two young girls in the house. And I mean, we were raised to really lean into our femininity. And that was always encouraged and always supported. And my parents did a really good job of that. And I think it was just, I think it was people around me. I think it was, and I wouldn't even say my friends, really. I would say haters at school probably were like, oh, that's so
Mm.
stupid that you like pink, or like any other word that's
Mm-hmm.
completely inappropriate to say.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think like it also comes from a lot of, I think like when you look back at television and you look back at movies and you look back at some of these jokes that people thought were so funny,
Mm.
and it's basically just poking fun at anything feminine. It is so awful to look back and just cringe at that. And I think that it comes from a lot of these places, and our society, for better or worse, was kind of like a whirlpool of all of these things, especially
Mm-hmm.
in the 90s and the early 2000s, when you now have
Mm-hmm.
the introduction of the internet and you're bringing all of these things together. I feel like we saw that on a more global scale than maybe those that were older than us.
Mm.
Um, and I
Yeah, the
think,
the jokes in
oh
Friends.
my God, they're horrible.
Yeah.
They're awful. And
Like
I love Friends.
I
I don't
do
know
too.
why I love Friends.
I was gonna say, like, I grew up watching Friends. I still think there are
Yes.
episodes that are hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, so many of the jokes specifically about Chandler
Yes.
are
Yes.
making fun of him being too feminine or femininity in general, his
Yeah.
dad being gay and or being a drag queen and like
Yes.
yeah, so many jokes at the
Helena
expense of
Handbasket. Oh, she should have had a much bigger character arc. I mean, we
I
could
did
have
not
gone
remember
so
her name.
far with
That's
Helena. Oh, we leave Friends on when we leave the house for the dogs.
yeah.
So they're like, they've probably got a lot to say about internalized misogyny too. But I watch it and I'm like, oh my God, like this is so awful.
Mm-hmm.
Not just about being feminine, but like about being gay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, you see the lack of diversity on the show. Everyone knows
Right.
that. And we've
Well,
talked about that. But it's like,
yeah. The things Ross says about his ex-wife being gay are
oh
like
my God.
flooring in some of those episodes. But yeah, that's a whole other thing as
It's
well.
like you have to know, and it's so
Mm.
sad that you have to know when to like take things with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're constantly giving so many aspects of our media the benefit of the doubt. Like, especially when you go back and you look at this stuff, you're like, oh God, it was the 90s. Like, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Abby and I say that all the time. My sister and I say, oh, it was the 90s. Like, we say it's like a phrase that we use, like, it's a
Mm-hmm.
catchphrase because you look back and you're like, even in this short amount of time, like, call it 30 years, the world has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look back and you see that, it's just like,
I
how
know.
embarrassing as a culture for us.
I know. And like on one hand, it's like great that they did have the representation of like a gay couple or
Mm-hmm.
a like drag queen or whatever, like great that they were progressive in that manner,
Yep.
but weird the context that comes along with that of like
Yeah.
always being a negative or always being like an embarrassment to the main character that it impacts or
Yes.
whatever. And it's like you can always look at stuff from the 90s with that kind of social lens of this was progressive because it was talking about things that had not been talked about on TV yet.
Yeah.
Did they handle it correctly?
Did they talk
No.
about it in a kind way that,
Mm,
was meant to be representative of other people? it was used as a punchline. It was used
Right.
as you know, as a way of making comedy, as a way
Mm-hmm.
of kind of, like you said, kind of playing to the main character in a negative way.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so, I can't help but think that, yeah, those sorts of things probably do form some kind of opinion about like being a woman, being really
Mhm.
feminine, being really girly.
Yeah.
It's always seen as like not, I don't know, like someone who shouldn't be taken seriously, which is so awful. I
Yeah.
think that that's why things like Legally Blonde were such a big deal.
Yeah.
Because here you had a main character who wore pink, who cared about the way her hair and makeup looked,
Hmm.
who like was overtly feminine and proud of it,
Hmm.
and a powerful main character as
Hmm.
well.
Yes.
Now, did that movie do everything correctly? No. But
No.
like it's still, I feel like those examples are still so few and far between,
Hmm.
even
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Because you still have kind of this narrative in media of like, oh, the girl that's not like other girls. And
Right.
I just, I feel like growing up, I wanted to be that because that was so like, again, that was like the main character in the books I read and the movies that I watched and everything. It was like, oh, the girl that's like different. And it's
Yes.
so lame.
Yes.
Um,
They
and
highlight that type of character so much. You look back
yeah.
and it's always like a girl trying to break the norm. And so
Mm-hmm.
often, like in the same films, the antagonist is someone who is like super
Uh-huh.
girly, somebody
Uh-huh.
who, you know, I feel like in Mean Girls, like,
Yeah.
you know, and that's like plays to the
Yeah,
plot
yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit too,
Yeah.
obviously, but like, and I'm also thinking of like these really like trashy 90s movies too. Like
Yeah.
you've got like, you know, the girl who like doesn't fit in, like let's find her a date to the prom, and like her arch
Mm-hmm.
nemesis is going to be the pretty popular girl who likes the guy. And like
Right.
that's such like a trope in our world, like in our media, in our
Mm-hmm.
literature, anywhere you look, like that is something that is like I don't want to say like fetishized, but like
Mm-hmm.
it's really it's a lot of storylines that feel kind of icky.
Yeah. Like I'm sure that there are more people that can identify with not being the like popular like
Yeah.
cheerleader type.
Yeah.
Like the popular cheerleader type is going to be few and far between in high school in general. And so I'm sure there are more people that would identify with a character who isn't that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, if every time there's someone who's like overly feminine, that they're seen as the bad guy or they're the mean
Yeah.
girl or whatever. Why can't there be an overly feminine girl who also isn't like the head cheerleader? You know what I mean? Like you can
Exactly. Exactly. You can be both.
Yeah.
Both
So
things can exist.
I love the whole trend of like recently where women who are like online dating or whatever, whenever a guy says to them, "Oh, like you're not like other girls," and they're like, "No, actually I am. I
I'm
am
just like
like
them.
I am like other girls because other girls are amazing."
Yes.
And
Yes.
like I'm a girl's girl through and through. Like I love that
I do too. I love
because
that so much.
yeah, I'm like, why do we have to like pit women against each other? Like this is
Right.
not like a anti-woman situation in order to get the guy. Like we
And
don't
for
have to do
so
that.
long, that is what the patriarchy counted on.
Mm.
That crumbling
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
has also had a profound effect on the way that men see themselves.
Totally.
And I am here for it all day, every freaking day. Like I
Mm-hmm.
am like other girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because other girls
Yeah.
are amazing. Yeah.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with other girls being the
Right.
same as other girls.
Right.
The other thing I really can't stand and I'm really over is being called basic. Like,
Oh.
when was the last time
Uh-huh.
you called a man basic?
Right. Because they liked the same things that other men liked. Oh, you're so
I
basic.
If I'm basic,
Mm-hmm.
love it. Love it. Like,
Yeah.
I am so happy to be exactly how I am. And if you think that's basic, like, I don't need to be a part, you don't need to be part of my plot line.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Like, that's,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in this.
I feel like it comes full circle to the conversations of like, let people live their life the way they want to live it. And who
Yes.
cares? Why do you care what other people are ordering at the coffee counter? Why do you
Yeah.
care if I don't know why I'm going down a drink rabbit hole, but I was thinking like, why do you care if people get like girly cocktails?
Oh my
Whatever.
God.
That
It's such
whole,
a
it's
thing.
so dumb.
It's such a thing.
I would much rather have some kind of like little sour lemony twist thing than a beer any day.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm
yes.
not a beer drinker. If you are, fabulous for you. But
I
like
love
I
our listeners that are beer drinkers. I love our listeners that love wine. I love our
Yeah.
listeners that don't drink. Like, go live your freaking life.
Yeah, who cares?
I am not, I'm drinking grape juice. You may have thought it was red wine. It's grape juice
Love that.
for my health.
I
It's
have a
Concord.
smoothie,
You know what?
not a sponsor. Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. But Tropical Smoothie, you can get over here and sponsor us anytime now.
I mean, if they want to, yeah, I'm not
We
gonna
don't
say
have one in
no.
Hendersonville, and I'm desperate.
Oh, we have one right down the road and it's dangerous.
I'm so
Um,
lucky.
I can, okay, so another thing that I realized though as an adult that I did not realize even going through college where I was an English literature minor, I did not realize that I had this like misogyny around female authors.
Oh,
And it's been really recent that I've
yeah.
been like, why was it that when I went through this whole kick of like reading classic literature,
Yeah.
I did not read Jane Austen. I
Mm,
did not read Charlotte Bronte.
mm,
I stuck to male authors that were considered the greats,
right.
and that was who I wanted to implement, like, wanted to be like when I wrote stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I emulate, not implement. Um,
Sure.
I just had this idea that somehow the male authors were better.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I can't even explain where that came from because
Right.
even in college, like I took a women in literature class.
Yeah.
Like I specifically sought out situations where I was forced to learn about female authors, but I still like when I met Mike after college and he asked me like who my favorite authors were, it was still all men.
Mm, mm-hmm.
It was like I just hadn't
Yeah.
like allowed myself to say there are great female authors out there,
Yeah.
which is so bizarre. I can't even really explain
Mm.
it.
I think it's also, it's very true in literature. It's very true in art. When you think of artists that are
Mm-hmm.
considered among the greats,
Yes,
I don't have a lot of female references there.
I
I
know.
I I hear in my mind mostly men. Um, I think,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think that is absolutely the case and absolutely true. And I think a lot of it is because in a lot of ways the world has been controlled by men
Mm-hmm.
in our modern society
Yeah.
since its inception. And so when you
Yeah.
when you have men in charge, they're the ones that are going to be pushing the
Mm-hmm.
male agenda. So
Right. And
I
it's not that there weren't female artists
oh,
through the ages.
absolutely. There are
They just aren't talked
many
about. They just
that
aren't talked
aren't
about.
talked about, and they're not valued at the same
I know.
level as a male. Same for
There's
literature.
There's a book, I haven't read it, but I've seen it like in art sections in like Barnes and Noble and stuff called The Story of Art Without Men.
Oh,
And it goes through art history just focusing on female artists.
that's amazing.
And there was a group of women, now I don't remember when this took place. Hang on, hang on. So there's a group called the Gorilla Girls,
Uh-huh.
and they're very controversial because they come into museums
Oh yeah.
and any painting that has a nude woman in it done by a male artist well, they themselves wear like gorilla masks, but
Right. That's like a double entendre
they will
play on
put
words.
like gorilla faces, like stickers on the paintings of the nude women. And
Oh.
their whole thing is like women are the art and not the artist because there are so many paintings of
Ah.
nude women and like their bodies are on display,
Yep.
but
Mm-hmm.
female artists are so often overlooked.
Yeah.
Okay, it was formed in 1985.
Oh,
And
love.
they're devoted to fighting sexism and racism within the art world.
Is it still going on today?
I think so.
Oh,
It says
wow.
like Guerrilla Girls is an anonymous group of feminists,
Oh,
female artists.
wow.
Yeah.
That's so
So,
cool. That's so
yeah,
cool.
to remain anonymous, members don gorilla masks.
I love this.
Isn't that interesting?
It
And
is.
yeah, they'll hang up posters or stage surprise exhibitions. Like they're very fascinating, but they're very controversial because there are a lot of artists that do not appreciate them. Um,
Mhm.
but I find that very interesting as well.
It is. Oh my gosh, it is. And I think, the way that, especially in art, the focus and the subject has been so primarily female and telling
Mm-hmm.
the story of, but not just any female, like the female archetypes. You've
Mm-hmm.
got like the mother, you see that in religion too. Like the mother, much of that comes from religion and,
Mm-hmm.
Christian. I don't know what you would want to call it. I want to call it propaganda, but that's probably an unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
You see that and you see
Yeah.
like, the whore and how she's
Mm-hmm.
portrayed, and you see the maiden and how she's very innocent and very godly and very
Mm-hmm.
holy, and the old woman, like very
Yeah.
very infrequently do you see like a normal middle-aged woman
Mm-hmm. Just out there living her
depicted in
life.
art. like
Yeah.
like she's either a baby,
Right.
a whore, an old lady,
Right.
or the mother Mary, the
Right.
Madonna and child, like that in art, and she's always freaking nude.
Always.
She's never got
Always.
clothes on. She's never out there just being a gal. She's never
Mm-hmm.
out there being a woman. She's serving in these other like identifying ways. Like she is serving as a mother, she is serving as a wife, she is serving as a queen, she's serving men.
Or yeah, she's just serving as a sex symbol for men.
She's a symbol. She's not
Yeah.
a person, she's a symbol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there is something so wrong with that, in my opinion. I just think we've totally missed the plot again.
Right. I mean, as you're talking, I immediately thought of the controversy surrounding Kanye's wife at the Grammys. Like if you missed it, good for you
Yeah.
because Lord.
Good on you. We're
But
proud of you.
Kanye's wife fully like disrobed on the red carpet
Did.
and we saw everything.
Yep.
And people have really questioned whether or not she did it of her own volition. Some people think she's like known to do this kind of stuff. Other people think it's like very weird that she looked to him and he gave her like the nod to
To take her
disrobe.
off. Yeah.
Um, like
Oh,
literally it all was on display.
yeah.
And it's very strange when it's like, I don't know anything about that woman. I don't know anything about her. I have now seen her entire body,
Right.
which is
Back to
like,
front.
yeah, even if you're making some sort of artistic statement, like that is a very jarring thing
Mhm.
to just suddenly like the world is just going to know you by your body alone.
Yes.
And yeah, it takes like the personhood out of it.
Yes. You think about women through history, and even in our more contemporary history, like Marilyn Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
Until I watched a very compelling documentary about her, I knew very
Mm.
little about her as a person.
Right.
I knew her as a symbol. I knew her
Right.
as what she is kind of represented to men
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
entire existence, even after her death. I mean, we're still talking about how, she was this bombshell and like this sexy, the imagery is so sexy. I don't know I didn't know a lot about her.
Right.
You see, Pamela Anderson, who now is
Mhm.
on this incredible campaign to go makeup free, because I think part of it is because she's been seen as a symbol.
Yeah,
It's
she's been
like, now
objectified.
look at me and see that
Uh-huh.
I'm a person. And I,
Right.
I totally agree with what you're saying about um Kanye's wife. I don't know her name.
I
I don't know
know.
her name.
I
And
know.
that's that. And now I recognize that that is part of the problem too. Like, that is part of my issue.
But like we don't know her from anything else. And
Right.
the only times I have seen her, even in like paparazzi photos, it's like, can you believe Kanye's wife is walking around barefoot and stuff like that? Like it's
Right.
always just something about like how she's dressed. Like
Yes.
she's an accessory.
Yes. I think we are still really living in a time where women, in a lot of ways, are viewed as accessories, or they're like the plus one to the man. They
Right.
are, you know, they're added on to the man. Like, they can't
Right.
just exist in their own space and as their own being. I think that is a really, really huge issue that is really hard to combat.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at, kind of our culture and our tides turning in, this radical idea of feminism, it's been very recent. It's been in, like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the past 10 years, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
is when people are really calling this out and saying this is an issue. I think we take a lot of time to feel comfortable enough to pop out of our norm. And I'm not saying that there were not feminists before. There have
Right.
been feminist movements that have been incredible.
Yeah.
We stand on their shoulders.
Absolutely.
There have been incredible throughout history, throughout time, through, prior to the modern era, even, that,
Mm-hmm.
women are really trying to become a separate entity and unto themselves.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it takes us a really, really long time to even like step out and say, I'm okay with
Mm-hmm.
allowing to stand up against something. And when it's something as powerful as men and the patriarchy, or whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
it's really intimidating. It's really daunting, because it has been the way of our world, but not for as long as we think it has. And
Right.
knowing we were going to talk about this, I whipped out When God Was a Woman
Yeah.
by Our Lady of the Hour, Merlin Stone. Merlin
Yes.
freaking gets it.
Yeah.
And she talks about how, when you look back in, real science,
Mm-hmm.
archaeology,
Mm-hmm.
destroyed and dismantled architecture,
Yes.
women were the symbols of heaven. They were the
Uh-huh.
symbols of the sun. They
Mm-hmm.
were the supreme goddess. They were idolized, like
Mm-hmm.
you would see today a man like God or Jesus, or, insert
Mm-hmm.
name here. And she goes through, I mean, it's so enlightening. I just feel like everybody needs to read this book.
I
I'm
know.
like, oh my
I'm
gosh.
so glad you've read it.
Yes, I love it. I love this book. And I was looking back to reference and things, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the quotes that are in there just are gut punching,
I
like,
know.
about women and how years and years have gone by, especially as religions have evolved,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just been the agenda to cover up women, to
Mm-hmm.
destroy idols of women, to
Mm-hmm.
erase from history the warriors and priestesses and
Mm-hmm.
goddesses and farmers and everyday
Yeah.
people in their societies who were
Yeah.
important, and women.
Right. I
And
think
it's so interesting.
I
I
was
just love
so
it.
I was so mind blown by the thought that like there was a point in history where they did not know how men were a part of reproduction, but
Right.
they knew that women were birthing children and that continued on the human race. So it made
Yes.
sense to them that a woman birthed humanity. So they worshiped
Absolutely.
a goddess, a female goddess that was like the original mother of
Yes.
humanity. And that makes
Yes.
so much sense that that would
Too
be the
much
case.
sense.
I can't believe that that
Mhm.
was like never taught to me. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I
Like,
know.
I feel like being a young girl growing up in a like heavily patriarchal society,
Mhm.
it does like warp things a little bit because again, like you're not seen as powerful for being a girl. Like not in the way that boys are taught that they're powerful.
Right.
Like
Right.
even though we were raised in an age where it was like you can still have all these things, you know, you can have access to all of these things like college and
Right.
starting your own business and all of that is wonderful and a great step in the right direction. There's still like when you still look at the inequity between men and women in the
Mhm.
job force or men and women starting their own businesses, like venture capital is not on women's side.
Oh,
Like
no.
men's
Absolutely
businesses
not.
get financed way more than women's businesses do, which is
Yeah.
still so upsetting that we still have that kind of
Mhm.
difference in equality when it's like at this day and age, can you hear my child screaming?
I wondered if that was him or not.
That is
It's
yeah, I don't
okay.
know what's happening. He
Oh,
might be getting a diaper
baby.
change next door.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Rough times.
Um, but it's so upsetting to think that like we still don't give women the credit I feel like that women deserve. Like
Absolutely.
we're
We have so
capable, we're
far to go.
smart. And so a part of that too, and you mentioned that there are kind of like archetypes that women are put into or
Mhm.
categories that women are put into. And I think that there's a really insidious thing in our society where we infantilize women a lot. And
Oh,
I think, and
yes.
I caught myself earlier by calling one of my friends a girl.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so often we refer to grown women as girls and we
Mhm.
see it as normal,
Yeah.
but we never, ever call a grown man a boy.
No.
Not in the same way. And
No.
I wrote down, again, going back to like literature, titles that have girl in it when they're talking about a grown woman.
Mhm.
Girl on the Train,
Yep.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo,
Yep.
Gone Girl,
Mhm.
The Other Boleyn Girl.
Mhm.
Literally, there are like articles online with so many listed out. And I'm like, if
Mhm.
you, and all of those books are talking about grown women,
Yeah.
sometimes in very sexual situations as well,
Absolutely.
but they're titled girl. And again, if you were to take like books that have man in the name, and swap it with boy, it would sound stupid.
Right.
You would be like, what are you
That
talking about?
doesn't sound like,
Yeah,
yeah, it sounds gross. It sounds like, ugh, what is that?
right.
Like,
Like the
mhm.
illustrated boy. No, you're talking about a grown man. Like
Right.
Iron Boy. Like, come on. We even say Spider-Man when we're talking about a high school boy.
It's true.
Come
It's
on.
so true. And
And like,
you're very right about that. And
and
I wonder if it's like about age. Do you think that
I
it
don't
goes
know.
back to women of younger age are valued far more than older women?
Possibly, but I think my gut reaction to that is women, grown women, are still infantilized as like, well, you're just a
You're a
girl and you just
girl.
don't know any better. You're
Hmm.
just a girl adrift out here in the world when it's like, no, it's a grown ass woman.
Right.
Like
And she probably has her shit together more than you do.
right. Like that's how I take it. I don't know if that's really the case, but that's how I view
Hmm.
it. And I can't help but think that our beauty standards for a long time
Yeah.
when you're talking about that women should be thin and women should have a thigh gap and like
Fucking thigh
should be
gap.
hairless and like literally with like big eyes and long hair and all
Mm-hmm.
these things that we say are like the ideal for a woman, you're describing a young
A
girl,
girl, a young girl, an
a
actual
pre
girl.
a prepubescent girl.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
like, I don't know if it's like a
We
weird
gotta, yeah, take a look at the
pedophilia
mirror.
thing. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's just a patriarchal thing of making women seem less than they are,
Mhm.
or if there's something worse at play there of like
Mm,
idolizing young girls over grown women.
yeah.
I don't know. But it's upsetting to me that like it's taken me until late 20s definitely
Mm-hmm.
before I started to realize all of these things that are inherently misogynist. And well, and there is another thing that I wrote down here because I did take notes of
I
things.
love, I'm obsessed.
Um, there was a post that I saw, and I wish I had saved it so that I could show and give credit to who was talking about this, but it was a different podcast talking about the fact that anytime a woman has difficulty with the men in her life, we have a term that makes her look bad. So she has daddy issues.
Mm, mm.
That means her dad was either not around or didn't treat her well, but she
Right.
has daddy issues. Oh, she's bad at picking men. Well, that means that multiple partners of hers have treated her poorly, but she's bad at picking
She's got an
men.
issue. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We have all of these terms that put the fault on the woman.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm guilty of saying that about people of like,
Sure.
God, how does she keep picking men that like cheat on her? You know, like
Absolutely.
instead of
No,
being like instead of being like, why are there so many men that are comfortable with cheating? Like,
right. When you flip it on its head, it really makes such an impact. Like when you take the time to kind of like fully understand, like, okay, what is really at play here?
right.
We're putting the blame on the woman. We are telling her that it's her issue, that she's got to
Hmm.
work it out, when it's like, no, no, we need to flip it around and look
Yeah,
at what the men are doing.
right. Like
It's
it's not that she has daddy issues, it's that there are not enough men being good fathers.
absolutely. That's what I was gonna say too. I was like, well, you
Like,
need to like take a look around and be like, that means I probably like need to be a good dad. Like, yeah, it. We are so comfortable with it, and I
hmm
think that's part of the issue is that we are so comfortable and we're fine with a lot of times just like looking past it and looking over it and not really internalizing it. But when you take a minute just to understand where these things initially come from and where they're
hmm
born from, you're like, oh man, like
yeah,
this is horrible in terms of how we view ourselves and our worth as women.
right.
And I think a lot of it is because modern religion, when you look specifically at Christianity, because that's what I'm most familiar with, I'll use it as an
Mm,
example,
yeah.
is, you've got the woman who screwed everything up in the beginning. And from
Hmm.
then on out, women have been punished and punished and punished.
Uh-huh.
And when you look at influences on, education and literature,
Hmm.
art, business, anything, you pick a category.
Yeah.
Who's in charge of that? It's usually a white Christian
Uh-huh.
man. So when
Hmm.
you see the world through that lens, you're going to project that onto
Totally.
people. So when you've been taught and it's been ingrained in you that women screwed it up,
Hmm.
women are evil, women are of the devil,
Hmm.
you are going to see the world that way.
Right.
You are going to put, that's going to cast your view. That is
Hmm.
going to be reflected in what you influence throughout your life. Like
Yeah,
that is what
totally.
it is. So when you take a minute to be like, maybe my religion isn't the beginning and ending of the world like we think it
Mm,
is, and the world has been a modern society for well over 2000 years, by the
mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
If we get out of that box, we actually allow ourselves to understand that what we were taught and what we have believed to be true is not true.
Right.
And that's what I really found in this book is like,
Yeah.
if we even take a minute to go 3000 years before,
Mm-hmm.
you see these pagan religions
Mm-hmm.
that were valid and were important and critical to society, that
Mm-hmm.
really focused on women and the importance of women for many different reasons. And it's
Yeah.
been wiped out by the missionary and
Uh-huh.
the by the colonizer. You look at this and
Mm-hmm.
it's you we understand how quickly the world devolved into a patriarchy, because
Mm-hmm.
when something is accepted as absolute truth, you have
Right.
no way to see beyond it as a person.
Right.
And that's how we ended up, I think, where we are today.
Right. I mean, it literally talks about that like Judeo-Christian religion has been around for like 3,000 to 5,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
The religion of the goddess predated that
Yeah.
back to like 25,000 years ago.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
2,500, 25,000.
25,000.
And it started to be wiped out by the Indo-Europeans when they came through
Yep.
and colonized and wiped out different groups of people
Yep.
or took over different groups of people, and they had a more patriarchal society.
Right.
And that's what swept through the Near and Middle East,
Yes.
which is so wild to think
Yes.
about.
It is.
There's a passage in there about Adam and Eve. I don't know if you
Oh,
know where it is,
yes.
where she talks about how like it's still the narrative of Eve is still used today, even in like perfume commercials and
Oh,
stuff. Like,
absolutely.
do you know where I'm talking about? I think it's in the first chapter or
It's like
something.
it's like things that are innately very secular.
Yeah,
This has the roots of it have gotten so far deep into our culture
yeah,
that it affects things that really should not be affected or have be impacted by someone's religious views.
right.
But yeah, that I mean that's
I
exactly what you're saying.
I think I marked it. Let me go grab my
It
copy.
may
Hang
have
on a
been in the
second.
introduction.
Let me go grab my copy. I think
Yeah.
I highlighted it, but okay, sorry. I had to go downstairs.
Oh my god, you're fine.
I read it to my mom recently, and I thought that I had highlighted it, but I guess I didn't.
Mm. But I feel it's incredibly important for, if not everyone, every woman I know to read this
Mm-hmm.
book. Like, it's so enlightening. Every
Mm-hmm.
single page is something that I have not thought of before.
I think it's in chapter where am I? In chapter one, right after the like subheading of a fortnight after the creation of the
Yes,
universe.
yes, 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 yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Here it is. Okay. This is like a little ways past that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it says, but there was still something about the myth of Adam and Eve that lingered, seeming to pervade the culture at some deeper level. It appeared and reappeared as the symbolic foundation of poems and novels. It was visually interpreted in oils by the great masters whose paintings glowed from the slide projectors in my art history courses. Products were advertised in high fashion magazines, suggesting that if a woman wore the right perfume, she might be able to pull the whole disaster off all over again. It was even the basis of dull jokes in the Sunday comics. It seemed that everywhere woman was tempting man to do wrong. Our entire society agreed. Adam and
Mm-hmm.
Eve defined the images of men and women. Women were inherently conniving, contriving, and dangerously sexy, while gullible and somewhat simple-minded at the same time. They were in obvious need of a foreman to keep them in line, and thus divinely appointed. Many men seemed quite willing. um,
Merlin hits the nail on the freaking head.
oh my gosh. That line of like dangerously sexy and conniving, but
Oh my
also
God.
but also gullible and
Gullible.
in need of like
It
a
just
foreman.
constantly like at every turn contradicts itself. That
I
this
know.
idea that women are so incredibly intelligent enough to pull off this whole thing where
Right.
we topple down the world from top to bottom, and yet somehow we're too stupid to, be
Right.
as important as a man is. Like,
Right.
it doesn't make any sense.
But isn't it so interesting too with the conversation on DEI right now, which is just diversity, equality and inclusion.
Equity.
Oh, equity and
Yes,
inclusion.
yes.
Um, when we're looking at that, so many people right now are saying, oh, well, these DEI hires are just here to fill some diversity gap that is needed. And it's like, we know already that that's not the case because if it was the case, our society would be crumbling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we were purely just hiring people because we needed an Asian person and a black person and a white person, no matter what their qualifications were, nothing would be operating correctly
Right,
because
right,
we do hire people of different races. In
right,
fact, we're hiring different races because those are the most qualified people. We're not just looking at white men anymore.
right. And let me
Like,
tell
that
you
should be
something.
obvious. That should be obvious.
As someone who has literally never worked closely with a man in a
Mm,
professional setting,
mm-hmm.
I can tell you with absolute confidence
Uh-huh.
that organizations and businesses, everyday businesses, run perfectly well with women who are leading from
Yes.
top to bottom, every single position from the CEO's chair
Mm-hmm.
to the entry level role.
Right.
I have worked with one man in a professional capacity in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's an organization that's been around for over 170 years.
Right.
So let
Right.
me just tell you that this idea of the DEI hire is complete bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
They are qualified people
Yes.
who did what they needed to do and knew what they needed to know in order to get a job and perform a job. Get over it.
Right.
What it says to me is that you are uneducated
Mm-hmm.
and you're unwilling to see past your own bias and your
Right.
own bullshit.
Right. Right.
That's
I
it.
mean, did you hear Jasmine, is it Crockett talking about the congresswoman from Texas talking about how she was unconcerned about all of this because like she's a black woman and just an absolute boss. Like I adore her.
Stunning.
Um, if you don't know who Jasmine Crockett is, you absolutely need to look her up and listen to some of the things that she
Oh,
says to
yes.
Congress.
Mm-hmm.
But she literally just I think she was on CNN being interviewed, and I just saw a clip of it, but she was like, the only person that is worried about this is the mediocre white boy who is not prepared.
It's true.
She was like,
Oh
I'm
my
unconcerned.
God.
She was like, I know I worked hard and I know what I'm doing when I walk into Congress, and I'm not concerned. Like,
Jasmine, say it louder. Say it louder. Like, come
hmm
on. It's so true. It's the only one that is threatened
right.
is the mediocre white man.
And I feel like, I we're bringing like race into this, but I feel like anytime you're putting a hierarchy on people, whether that's men versus women or white people versus any other race, like when you start stacking people in a hierarchy, there are going to be parallels in that, there are a lot of parallels between women having this duality of being sexy but also gullible and needing a man.
Right.
And I keep referencing people right now, but there is a fantastic speech that was done. It was a sermon for MLK Day.
Mm.
Let me see. I have it saved somewhere here. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to play this part,
Mm-hmm.
but this is Dr. Mark Lamont Hill, and some people may be familiar with this sermon already, but I feel like this really speaks to not only like the DEI programs that are being taken away, but also again to this duality of self and what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Um, if you can't hear this, please let me know.
Okay.
That's why these writers kept writing written by himself, written by herself, Phyllis Wheatley, because they thought Negroes couldn't read and write. They thought Negroes didn't have the capacity to read and write. And yet they made all the laws to stop us from learning how to do what? Read and write. If we can't read and write, what you trying so hard to stop us for? And the answer is because America has always known what you are. America has always known who you are. America has understood what you're capable of, and they will make you think you ain't nothing at the same time that they exploit your gifts. They'll tell you lazy and make you a slave. They'll tell you you dirty and have you clean their house. They'll tell you uncivilized, and we raise their children.
Wow.
When I tell you, that gives me absolute
Yeah,
chills.
I feel it. I mean,
they tell you you're lazy and they make you a slave. They tell you you're unclean and they tell you you're dirty and they have you clean their house. They call you uncivilized and we raise their children.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's so, oh my God, that is so beautifully said. I mean, it encapsulates everything that has placed barriers for years since the beginning of whatever you want to call it, time, modern era, whatever it is. It is the idea that you have to be one or the other, and we only accept one. And we're going to put systems in place to make sure that is your narrative, that is your story, and that is your existence.
Or we know you're capable of more, but we're going to put systems in place to keep you down. Yeah.
Who was that said that? Who gave that sermon?
Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. And that was his MLK sermon from last year. When I first saw it, I was like, did he give that on MLK Day this year? Because that was also Inauguration Day, but no, it was 2024.
Man, that is really, really
very powerful, I feel.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's very telling that not all white people think that people of color are like less than. Not all men think that women are less than. And
absolutely,
we all know that that's the case. I'm not going to sit here and say not all white people, not all men, because like that's a whole
right. That literally is a whole
there are major issues obviously that need to be addressed. But I think I've said this earlier, it's so insidious that in our culture, it's really normalized to talk about women in such a way, or again, to talk about people who are qualified for their position and being hired for it, to talk about them in a way that is derogatory. And we just kind of like accept it as a norm.
Yes.
When it's so not normal to think that.
It's not.
It is so not normal to think that being feminine is less. It is not normal to think that as a woman, you are inherently worse at your job. It's not normal. I feel like if there are things in your life that you didn't realize were misogynistic until fairly recently, you're not alone.
You're not.
Feel like it's been so normalized for us to think these ways.
Yep.
Because that's how society has set it up. But it's not normal to think that.
And you really can find a way to switch the narrative, take that power when you stop and you think about it and you correct yourself. That is so critically important, just like you did when you think about pink and when you think about the color pink and how that is, it's meant to have been representative of an entire gender. It's a marketing scheme, but in a lot of ways it has it's taken on a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
So when you stop and you think about it and you say, well, no, or when you think about the idea of someone having daddy issues, when you think about
Yeah.
the idea of somebody being blamed because of the bad behavior of men,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you really start to understand and reframe. And I will say that to me, and I think to others that I am close with and who I value, you find a way to be an ally,
Mm-hmm.
whoever you can be.
Yes.
So when you hear a white man stick up for women,
Mm-hmm.
when you see these allies in action, whether it be gender based, whether it be religion, race, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, if you find an ally and you find a person who is willing to step up and stop and say, this isn't right, it goes so far. It is,
Right.
and
It
it
does.
can be so small. It doesn't have to feel enormous or world changing. It can be on a personal level that you
Right.
understand your bias and you understand how to get past it and
Right.
how to break down those walls within yourself.
Yeah,
That's the hardest work and the most important work to start with.
absolutely. Mike has been reading Raising Feminist Boys. It's a
Oh,
parenting book he picked up like as soon as he found out we were having a boy.
I love that.
And he's also been reading, like he just finished, How to Be an Anti-Racist, which was a big deal during the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yep.
And he said there was a lot of overlap between the two in his mind, at least in how they started, of like the work
Mm-hmm.
to raise children that are not misogynistic and to raise children that are not racist. Both of that starts with you as the parent.
Mm-hmm.
You have to acknowledge these
Absolutely.
things in your personal life and in society that are misogynistic, that are racist. And you have to be able to see those things and no longer participate in those things or no longer accept those things as normal.
Call it out.
Right. In order to then be able to talk to your kid about it, to show your kid how to handle those situations.
Yep.
If you're going through life and you're like not taking the time to think, was that misogynistic? Like, was that a dig because I'm a woman? Whatever. I'm not going to worry about it. Your children are still viewing that. If you have children, they're seeing that and they're like, oh, okay.
That's the
If a man,
example.
yeah, if a man says something like that, it must be okay. Whether
Mm-hmm.
they're a boy or a girl or non-binary or whatever, they are seeing that example
Yep.
of how you're handling it,
Yep.
even if you're choosing to ignore it. That's still an
It still makes
example.
a statement.
It
Your
does.
silence makes a statement.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
And so in both books, it was a lot of like, you have to not only recognize these things, but then also be willing to have these conversations over and over again with your child and
Yes.
go there.
Yep.
He said in the Raising Feminist Boys book, there towards the beginning of the book, the author talks about that she had NPR on in the car one day and heard them talking about something inappropriate Donald Trump was saying about women.
Mm-hmm.
And she went to go turn it off. And then she stopped herself
Mm-hmm.
and she asked her son in the back, do you hear what's being said? What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? And she talked to him about it in that instance. Instead of being like, oh, this isn't appropriate, I should just turn it off. She recognized my son has probably already heard this and I need to talk
Yeah.
to him about it. And she
Yeah.
says like there are only a few years in your child's life where you have absolute influence over them. At some point it's
Mm.
going to transition to their friends and then their
Yep.
partners,
Yep.
and you're not going to have influence over them as they get
Yeah.
older. But if you can talk about these things and say,
Mm-hmm.
did you hear that? That was not okay.
Yep.
Like we don't talk about women like that. We don't view women like that. We don't
Right.
view people of other races like that. We don't say those things. Those sorts of conversations inform their decisions at a really young age to then
Mm-hmm.
maybe they maybe they pick friends that don't talk like that either. And then they pick partners that don't talk or act like that
Right.
either. And it has that trickle down effect. But I still need to read Raising Feminist Boys. It's on my list, but Mike said it was
Oh,
very informative
I
because
bet it's just incredible.
it breaks it down by age too, of like how to talk about things when they're like 0 to 2 or like 3 to 6. And then like as they get older, like middle school years, high school years, how to talk about
Oh,
sex and porn and all and how that
wow.
influences how they view women. And
Oh, what
yeah,
an amazing tool.
I know.
That's amazing. I
I
think
know.
that is worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's so
Um,
great.
so I
I
don't
feel like
know.
we all
I'm
could read it. Add it to
even
the
if you're not
list.
raising, even if you're not
Even
moist.
if you're not raising a boy or a girl
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
feel like again I'm trying to unlearn some of these thoughts that I have about women.
yeah.
Even though I was raised to be a feminist myself and to believe
Yes.
women could do anything, there
Yes.
are still just things about our society and the way it's set up that I'm having to unlearn and unpack and decide how I'm going to educate my child on this as we move forward.
Yeah. And I wonder to myself and I think about like, will there ever be a day or what will the day be like when we no longer have to unlearn things?
Mm,
When we no longer have to erase what has been taught to us and instilled in us and
mm,
accepted by us
mm-hmm,
because the world is a better place. We are more in tune with each other. I feel like that our work and the work of others who are trying to make a difference
mm-hmm,
is not done until we reach a point where we don't have to erase what we've known and completely
mm,
refocus and reframe our thoughts.
yeah,
Because I think having that conversation, this example of, speaking to your child about what you're hearing on the radio that you want to help them understand is incorrect. And, you know, it's like, what if you were to have that conversation with your parent?
mm-hmm,
It would probably go very differently
right,
because it is so difficult to unlearn and untangle what
mm-hmm,
we've always been told and expected to believe
mm-hmm,
and how we've always acted and what we've believed. So I really think that that's an interesting way of framing it of like, if you can't have the conversation with your parent, please have it with your child. Please have it with
yeah,
someone close to you who is young. Don't
yeah,
be afraid of that conversation. Don't be afraid to ask questions and really be curious and be willing to understand and listen to
yeah,
the younger voices to help inform them. I think that can be a really powerful thing. And
mm-hmm,
whereas I think for so long it felt like the uphill battle was with our parents, it's like no, it's with the children.
yeah,
There's a lot we're not going to be able to help our parents unlearn and help that generation let go of.
mm-hmm,
And there will be things that happen in the world that will be hard for us to unlearn.
absolutely,
This does not mean that we are perfect people, that we understand the world in its entirety, that we understand our society as, in a holistic way. That's not what this means. And I think the willingness to learn and engage is the most important thing you can bring to the table.
yeah, yeah. And to be an ally, like you said earlier,
Mhm.
be a girl's girl.
Be a girl's girl
Yeah,
always. And
always.
use that word girl as a term of empowerment and not as a term of, you know,
Being less than.
yes, like being
Yeah.
being little and being weak and being like there is so much strength in women and girls and
Hmm.
whatever that means to you, be a girl's girl.
Yeah. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can also join the conversation on social media. and find us at Since We Last Talked on Instagram. Don't forget to leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.